start when ready.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. You saved the best for last.
We did.
For the record, Delegate Hornberger here on HB1193, Consumer Protection Motor Vehicles Right to Repair. Just to preface this bill, this is a nationwide issue, and if you support folks want to come up, go ahead. And it's playing out now mostly in state courts. Probably the most poignant example would be in Massachusetts, where through via ballot referendum they passed right to repair. Some of you are familiar with this concept. When you purchase something, you would think that you have the ability to repair it yourself. And should you feel not comfortable repairing itself, you could take it to someone of your choosing to repair it. However, as we know, vehicles have gotten tremendously more complicated over the years. And we're now at a juncture where in some cases you don't have a choice. You have to take it to your dealership to get fixed. And as we all know, monopolies can lead to price increases. So some of these owners of vehicles are now seeing an excess of a 30% markup that you would see taking it to a normal maintenance or repair shop. You're going to hear some talk about MOUs. There was an MOU to address this because it's been a problem now for over a decade. However, that MOU between the auto manufacturers, dealerships, and the smaller repair facilities is not aging well. And specifically, it did not address what we call cloud telematics. Cloud telematics are explained a little bit more in the fiscal note, but just giving the simplistic approach to this, cloud telematics are information that are sent from the vehicle via the airway, via indirect. They're sent back to the dealer, and then the dealer is able to use those to send in indications. If you have an app, some of you that have newer vehicles, that says, hey, you need to come in for maintenance. Something's wrong, something's astray. Well, most of your smaller outfits that do repairs don't have access to those telematics. And it's another way to monopolize the repairs that are happening on the vehicles. You're going to hear some talk about security concerns and bad actors and things like that, but that's not what this panel here is looking for. They're looking for purely maintenance information. The vehicle manufacturers have the ability to bifurcate between what is daily use records, where you're going, all that sort of personal information, and pure maintenance information. So that's what we're looking to get access to. This is a pro-business small bill, as you will see in the conclusion there, the fiscal note. And this is actually an extension of the Attorney General's Office of the Consumer Protection Division. I will point you to their testimony where they say, basically we're happy to protect the consumer and help out here. However, if you were to move on this bill, we'd like to have an additional staff person with that level of expertise. So with that, we've got a very large panel. I know it's late in the day, so I'll just move it on to them and ask for a favorable report on this bill. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and committee. My name is Todd Huff, former Baltimore County Councilman, but my primary job is I work in my family's business. I'm the operations manager, and I'm proud to say we've been around 4 generations, 80 years this year. And this bill is so important to small businesses like us, to where we work on cars day in and day out. I buy my guys the state-of-the-art equipment every year. The problem is the manufacturers will not release enough of the information to the third parties, like whether it be Alltel or Snap-on, for us to be able to get into some of the cars' data systems to be able to repair them. This bill, I'm heavily in support for it, primarily because of the fact that at the end of the day, it's going to save your consumers money. If they're forced to have to go to the dealer and pay the exuberant labor rates that the dealers charge, it's not fair to them. We've been around, again, 80 years. We're just looking for a fair shot to be able to work on these cars, and the technology is getting stronger and stronger and stronger every year. So I ask this committee to please take a strong look at this and in favor of it. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Roy Littlefield, and I'm here from the Tire Industry Association, which represents about 14,000 tire dealers who do auto repair across the nation, and we're based in Bowie, Maryland. And there are people here from CABA, the Maryland Tire Dealers, SSDA, the Service Station Dealers of America, the Maryland Service Station Dealers, and I've been exec of 3 of those associations out of the 4 since I started in the business in the 1970s. This legislation would preserve customer access to high-quality and affordable vehicle repair by ensuring vehicle owners and their repairers of choice have access to necessary repair and maintenance tool and data as vehicles continue to become more advanced. This legislation would reduce the access barriers when working on electric and autonomous vehicles. In November 2020, you probably heard that Massachusetts had passed their legislation. It went on the ballot. In the last 3 weeks before the ballot was due, the amount of money that was spent against this bill was mind-boggling. And the sponsor of the bill talked about, you know, these actors and how they had all this telematics things and women getting caught in parking garages and stuff. You want to go on YouTube and see some of those. In May 2020, the Federal Trade Commission released a report highlighting the barriers auto manufacturers have instituted to block consumers' right to repair. The FTC supported expanding consumer repair options and found, quote, scant evidence for the repair restrictions imposed by original equipment manufacturers. In a subsequent policy statement, the FTC noted that these repair restrictions created hardships for families and businesses, and the Commission, quote, was concerned that this burden is borne by more heavily by underserved communities, including communities of color and lower income. So we support the legislation.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir. I want to thank you all for your support to consumers on their rights to have their purchases maintained and repaired where they want. My name is Dwayne Myers, CEO, Dynamic Automotive, with 5 locations in Frederick County, Maryland, employing over 50 team members. There's legislation in over 20 states on right to repair initiatives. House Bill 1193 is a balanced bill that protects consumers' rights while also protecting independent garages like mine and the dealership network from unfair practices from manufacturers. Manufacturers are the gatekeepers of data and repair information. Without reasonable access to this information and the ability to purchase tooling, we will not be able to perform our duties. Independent garages and dealerships need to work together. Independent garages repair 75% of vehicles that are on the road today. We need each other to keep people moving forward. Without some form of control, manufacturers will be able to monetize access, and in the end, consumers that purchased vehicles will have to pay for data that their cars produced. In the past, we have been denied access to programming certain modules, not because we don't have the proper tooling or training, but because we were not allowed on that communication network. We have also had to send vehicles to the dealer because the tools were not available or on back order and there was no other supply for them. This doesn't happen often, but it does happen, and without protection, it could get a lot worse. House Bill 1193 protects the rights of consumers to choose who they take their car to. It allows the independent garage the ability to keep helping its community and its customers. Thank you for allowing me to speak and your consideration to help protect Maryland residents with their second largest purchase, their vehicle. Once they buy it, it should be theirs, and it should be their decision where they get it fixed. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Tim Hollenshade. I'm a 4th-generation auto mechanic, and here on behalf of the Chesapeake Automotive Business Association. Located in Baltimore County, my family auto repair business has served the public since 1939. I'm here today to urge you to consider the favorable passage of this Rights to Repair bill. I want to highlight this matter in broad strokes. The bill presented today isn't fundamentally new legislation, but rather a modernization of the existing framework. For decades now, right to repair legislation has preserved and protected consumers' rights, specifically the right to choose a preferred service provider. By upholding this fundamental principle of consumer protection, the cost of vehicle maintenance and ownership for individuals, families, and businesses has remained reasonable and competitive. While my family's legacy in the automotive aftermarket, right to repair legislation has other far-reaching economic implications affecting all Marylanders. This legislation touches everything from farm and agricultural equipment concentrated in our rural communities and Eastern Shore to commercial construction and heavy equipment in Maryland's development corridors. Right to repair also impacts marine equipment, which enables maritime commerce within our Chesapeake Bay economic zone. Admittedly, This bill has some well-funded opposition. Don't be fooled. These are the same old wolves cloaked in new wool, using terminology that's intended to invoke intense reactions. These organizations attempt to shroud the public from their true motive and intent. Core to this is reducing the number of service providers and restricting consumer choice. We know unequivocally that right to repair legislation promotes fair competition in the marketplace. Marylanders across this great state need you to act now and uphold a favorable position on this right to repair bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Vice Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify here today. My name is Roy Littlefield, and I am Vice President of Government Affairs for the Tire Industry Association. TIA is represented in all 50 states. We have 14,000 members and 350 members here in Maryland. We are based in Bowie, Maryland. We have also submitted testimony for the record. Right to repair remains a top issue for our members, and for today's tire dealer, about 60 to 80% of their business is now auto repair. The reality is cars are computers on wheels, and our members need to connect to these onboard computers to diagnose and to repair them. Luckily, consumers aren't feeling the pinch of this yet, and that's because the average car on the road right now is 12 and a half years old. So most of our members can still work on these cars and still repair them. But the reality is car dealerships can't handle the volume, and they will traditionally charge more for repairs than an independent shop. Consumers deserve to have a choice. As a personal example, last week I was at a dealership here in Maryland and I had to bring my car in for a recall notice. The service manager was taking calls on the phone and letting consumers calling in know that there was a 10 to 14 day wait to get an oil change. I just had an oil change at my local mechanic yesterday and I called Monday for that appointment. This is options that Maryland consumers still need. Last summer, I had a similar experience up in Maine where I was on vacation. I had an emergency repair. I called the dealership up there. It was a 3-week wait. Luckily, I was able to find a local repair shop that was able to fix it. Without legislation, Maryland vehicle owners will have fewer repair options, face longer wait times, and pay higher prices when they repair their vehicle. Maryland has the opportunity to lead the nation on the automotive right to repair issue. Thank you for your consideration, and we urge a favorable report.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Wilson, Sr. I've been in the business for over 48 years, in business on my own for 43 of those years. I've served as the president of the Maryland Tire Dealers Association and the CABA Association. And I've seen a lot of things with cars, and everybody's been talking cars here today for a long time. But one thing I think everybody should be noticing in their own personal cars are all of the lights, bells, and whistles, and sensors, and all those things that are going on. We have things in our mirrors that tell us that the cars are on our side. We have things in our tires that are telling us our tires are low or overinflated or even flat. We have all kinds of sensors that are going on. We have electronic power steering at this point. We have electronic transmissions at this point. You turn a little knob instead of manually changing the gear shift. All of these things are running through computers. All of these things require somehow or another electronic service to that vehicle in order to repair these things. This is not something that can be done without the information, and it is very difficult for the independent shops to get this information and to get this information for enough a variety of cars that are coming out. And even in the last couple of years, we're now seeing all the different variants of electronic cars at this point. So this is something that the consumers are going to end up paying for, and this is something that the shops are going to end up paying for. So there's got to be a reasonable method for the shops to be able to work on these things at a fair cost to the shop for all of these different makes, because our shop takes any car that anybody brings to us and we try to make the repair for them. We're asking for your help on this, and hopefully you can see your way to do it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Moore, and I am the manager of advocacy and grassroots for the Auto Care Association. We are a national trade association comprised of more than 3,000 member companies and affiliates that manufacture, distribute, and sell motor vehicle parts, accessories, services, tools, equipment, materials, and supplies. The Auto Care Association is the voice of the auto care industry, a $400 billion plus industry comprised of more than 4.5 million American professionals. In Maryland, our industry includes 42,117 jobs, generates $6.7 billion in economic activity, and provides $2.7 billion in wages. At least 20 states have filed some form of right to repair legislation, bills which seek to give consumers and businesses the right to diagnostic and repair information about their products, and thereby protect the long-standing principle that if you own something, you should have the right to maintain and repair it yourself. Advances in automotive technology since 2013 are now raising new challenges for access to in-vehicle data that did not exist previously. Car companies are now building proprietary firewalls around their onboard diagnostic systems such that independent shops and the tools that they use must request authorization from the manufacturers before accessing critical repair data, thus increasing manufacturers' control over the access to data. The multi-year automotive development cycle means that legislators must act now to save the competitive aftermarket for the future. Without a vibrant aftermarket, there will be a lack of choice for vehicle owners and a lack of competition for better services, which results in higher repair costs and reduced choices for vehicle maintenance and repair. A 2022 study found that on average, the same repairs performed by franchised automotive dealers were 36.2% more expensive than those done by independent shops. As Americans face inflation, ways we can assure competition and lower prices should be pursued. In addition, when consumers do not have to travel further out to dealers, but instead can visit local repair shops, we support.
Delegate Hornberger. Anybody else for the panel? Anybody in the hall?
It's a horn of plenty over here, I know.
I know. This is larger than a Delegate Charcudian panel. That's impressive.
Well, my motto is go big or go home.
Yeah, that's it.
But love to take some questions, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yep. Real quick for the gentleman in the middle, and really anybody on the panel can help out, but I assume you're making the repairs now. So is there currently an issue getting the information to make the repairs? Is that the crux of it? Yeah, I mean, you alluded to it, so
Yes.
I'm just trying to figure out what the actual root of the problem is.
Yes, there are certain systems on the car that we cannot get into and to make the repairs. There's even to do brakes on your car now, you have to access the computer.
So what do you do? I mean, when somebody brings that in, do you try to repair the brakes or do you send it back to the dealership?
We try to repair everything we can, and fortunately, sometimes we've been able to get help from other facilities. Sometimes the mechanics in the trade with that dealership help us out.
Is it, I see your hand, sir. Is it the telematics that you're looking for?
That is part of what we're looking for, yes.
Okay.
And you got to be able to access that in order to make these repairs.
Okay.
I mean, cars will come in there completely blank on the screen, their monitor in the car, and you got to figure out how to get into that and get them to work.
In addition to the telematics, what else specifically are you looking for?
Well, we need to see a reasonable cost to getting that for all the different makes of cars.
Right, but I guess my question is, what other information? I understand you want the reasonable cost, right? And you're just trying to obtain the information for whatever price. But I'm saying, besides telematics, what else are you looking for?
Well, the things like tools and stuff like that, we can get those to do it. There is a need for more education within the state to help out training. We're basically having probably 100 engineers design a car, and we're having a guy that we're lucky, hopefully, will have a high school education to work on it. And the electronic training is a big part of it at this point.
Okay.
Somebody has to be able to do the electronics.
Okay. Delegate Fraser Hidalgo?
Thank you. To follow up on the Vice Chair's question, are you having a problem with proprietary parts?
We do have problems with proprietary parts. There's so many little things on a lot of the new cars. I'm talking usually about from 2015 on.
Proprietary diagnostic equipment as well?
That has to be,
This is for anybody that
you're
wants
getting a computer that will access into the OBD2, and that has to be constantly updated in order to
Okay.
access that.
For the delegate, so does this bill include proprietary parts, proprietary computer systems in order to access?
Yeah, it involves access to those, so the ability to purchase them.
Okay, and then, does this also, I mean, all this conversation has been about automotive. Is there anything in this about computer proprietary issues on computers, mobile phones? What about farm equipment and industrial equipment? Is that in the bill as well, or is this strictly automotive?
Yeah, so this bill here particularly just refers to automotive.
So just the automotive industry. Are there any other states doing anything similar, and where are they?
Yeah, so Massachusetts is probably the biggest example. There's also legislation at the federal level, at the House of Representatives, that's bipartisan, that mirrors this language. Just for edification of the committee here, I'm involved with SEMA, and I believe they've submitted testimony as well, and maybe on virtual. They're a nationwide or global organization that does aftermarket, and they assisted us with the drafting of the legislation based on feedback from their members.
Like aftermarket, third-party parts?
Yep.
Okay. And then lastly, since this is all about car manufacturers, is there a particular manufacturer that is particularly guilty
Yes.
or suspect of these practices? And which
Yes,
manufacturer would that be?
We made multiple references to the MOU. The manufacturers, for the most part, have opted into that MOU. However, some of the newer companies, which would include Tesla, Rivian, and Lexus, are not participating in the MOU.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You got it. Okay, seeing no further questions, that concludes this panel. Next, our next panel will be Kirk McCauley, Andreas Heiss, Bruce Bariano, favorable. You got a fever? No, I'm just kidding, just kidding. Ralph Schisler, Ken Kwasny, and whenever you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bruce Bariano, we are in favor of this legislation, and I have, Mr. Chairman, testified many times in favor of bills. And I appreciate it, though. I represent LKQ. I've been representing them for about 15 years, been before this committee, for those of you that have been here for quite a while, for a long time. It's an international company which has a tremendous footprint in the state of Maryland. We have been here about 20 years. We have 11 facilities throughout the state, in Baltimore, Easton, Edgewater, Glen Burnie, Elthorpe, Jessup, Mount Airy, Queen Anne's County, and Williamsport, and we are in the aftermarket parts business, as well as cash and carry, go into facilities, as well as selling parts that have been dismantled and are available still to be used. With me is Andreas Heiss to my right, who's going to speak, came up from Florida, and he's my boss, so I hope you'll listen very carefully. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity here to testify in support of House Bill 1193. As Bruce mentioned, I'm Andreas Heiss. I'm the Government Affairs Manager for the Northeast region of LKQ Corporation. LKQ is the leading provider of alternative and specialty parts to repair and accessorize your vehicles. We offer consumers the broad range of replacement system parts, components, services to repair, to calibrate, accessorize automobiles and recreational vehicles. I respectfully ask you to all support and protect the Maryland consumer's right to choose. House Bill 1193 allows the consumer to decide where, when, and to whom how their vehicle gets repaired. As some others have mentioned, technology has become increasingly advanced, and manufacturers have found ways to restrict the access to a vehicle's necessary repair maintenance. And that's all we're talking about here. Isn't the data for anything else? We're only talking about the information that is important and necessary to repair a vehicle. Specifically, House Bill 1193 addresses these emerging barriers and supports consumer choice by leveling the playing field to give independent repair shops an equal opportunity to compete in the automotive aftermarket. At least 37% of the vehicles in the U.S. have at least one repair affected by limited data access. When access is necessary to data is restricted, independent repair shops cannot complete proper repairs and maintenance when necessary. In addition, 1193 can also help lower repair costs for Maryland drivers. On average, consumers spend 36% more on repair at dealerships than at the independent repair shop. Higher repair costs will further hurt Maryland families already struggling against inflation, high fuel prices, supply chain issues, and back orders. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I hope you will recognize the problems that this creates, and I ask you to report favorably on the issue, or in the alternative, order a comprehensive study on the subject. Thank you so much for your time.
Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Kirk McCauley, and I represent service stations, convenience stores, and repair facilities in Maryland. This bill would help not only help thousands of Maryland repair shops, but it's really a consumer bill. It lets the consumer take that automobile to wherever they want with the confidence that they can access information that the manufacturers have closed off to them. The telematics does send wireless information back to the dealership or the manufacturer, wherever it's programmed to, but the customer is paid for that car. He has a right to the information that's coming out of there. Especially with the electrification of the automobiles, it's getting more technical. Every car has 100 modules in it now. The electrification is going to go along smoothly. It'll take a while, but we need access to that information. We can't work on something we don't know about. So with that, you all have my written information. It covers a little bit more, but I think that is the basis of it. Consumer bill that lets us repair cars. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, that concludes this panel. Next, we will go.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Appreciate you coming all this way. Next, we'll go to the unfavorable in person, Josh Fisher, Bill Kress, and Pete Kitzmiller.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, for the last time today, Josh Fisher on behalf of the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. We're here to request an unfavorable report on House Bill 1193. You know, it seems from the testimony we heard that the premise of this is that independent repair shops need a law to ensure that they have access to the tools and information to repair a vehicle. We just fundamentally disagree with that premise. And that's because automakers already make that information available. The national MOU was mentioned. It's been in effect for almost a decade. There is a dispute resolution process involved in that national MOU. It has not been triggered once. So if there is real issues accessing tools or information from the independent repair shops, there is an option available to them and has been for 9 years, and nobody has taken advantage of that. So our conclusion would be that the national MOU is working well. And it was also mentioned that there's 20 right to repair bills across the country. As you know, there are digital right to repair bills, there are agricultural right to repair bills, and if you read those, especially the digital ones, automakers are exempted out of that because we reached an agreement with repair.org several years ago because they recognize that the auto MOU is the gold standard. It is the one that everybody else wants the other industries to follow. So we, again, fundamentally disagree with the premise that the information is not available. It is, and it has been for over a decade. And since the other side mentioned telematics, I will say that the national MOU also said that any telematic information that is available to the dealers is also available to the independent repair shops for the service and repair of vehicles. So I will end my testimony there and request an unfavorable report, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bill Kress here today on behalf of the Alliance for Automotive Innovation. We had the chance to have a couple meetings with the sponsor of this bill and try to get at exactly what the issue was. And I'm not sure we really got there. There is a website, OEM One Stop. You can Google it and go right to it now and get the repair information. That's part of the national agreement back in, 2014-ish. The industry has put a lot of money into this website. There's a 1-800 number. There's a dispute resolution number. There are ways to get the information. So we're at a little bit of a loss exactly what they're seeking and what problems they're trying to address. But there is a way to address issues through the website if you cannot get the information you need. It's an ongoing process with the repair organizations, this national MOU. So we think it addresses the issue, and we would respect an unfavorable report, respectfully request an unfavorable report. Thank you.
Is telematics, you're telling me, is included in the MOU? Because Massachusetts looks like they had the referendum on that specific issue.
Yeah, and they are different issues, but under the national MOU, yes, telematic information, if it's available to the dealer, will also need to be provided to the independent repair shop. That Massachusetts ballot measure is about third-party unfettered access to
So
your
is it only
vehicle.
certain telematics information that is
Telematic needed to service and repair the vehicle.
Okay. Okay. Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Josh, is your organization is a membership organization, is that correct?
Correct.
Is Tesla a member of your?
No, and thank you for the opportunity.
Is Rivian?
No.
And what about Lexus?
Lexus is, but Lexus is part of Toyota, and
Part of Toyota.
Toyota, I think he was referring to Lucid, and Lucid is not, I could be wrong.
Well, he said Lexus.
As far as I know, I mean, Lexus is part of Toyota, and Toyota is signatory to that.
Thank you.
Okay. That concludes this panel. Next, we'll go to the virtual witnesses. I have Christian Robinson. Go ahead and start when ready, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and good afternoon to the committee. My name is Christian Robinson. I'm the Senior Director of State Government Affairs for the Specialty Equipment Market Association, or SEMA, and I'm here to express support for House Bill 1193, which would protect Marylanders' rights to decide with what parts and where their vehicles are repaired and maintained. SEMA represents the $51 billion specialty automotive aftermarket industry. We're a trade association made up of approximately 7,000 member companies that are mostly small businesses nationwide, including 79 in Maryland that manufacture, market, sell specialty automotive aftermarket products, including restoration, appearance, performance, comfort, convenience, and technology products for all sorts of motor vehicles. Echoing what others on the panel in favor of this legislation have said, new barriers to independent automotive repair have emerged as vehicle technology has continued to evolve. While many aftermarket businesses and consumers rely on access to diagnostic data through an OBD2 port, they also need access to telematic data and diagnostic information that is wirelessly transmitted directly to vehicle manufacturers. HB 1193 will ensure that vehicle owners and repair businesses have access to this information, which is critically important to maintaining a competitive repair marketplace. I'll keep things brief and close by saying that we thank Delegate Hornberger for his leadership on this issue, and we respectfully request a favorable report from the committee.
Thank you. Emil Nussbaum.
Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Emil Nussbaum. I'm a Montgomery County resident, and I'm also the Vice President of Government and Regulatory Affairs for the Automotive Recyclers Association. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of House Bill 1193, which is a bill that would guarantee Maryland vehicle owners a right to repair their vehicles with the repair parts of their choice at the repair shops of their choosing. For 80 years, the Automotive Recyclers Association has represented the professional automotive recycling industry. We have 1,000 member businesses nationwide, 16 businesses located in Maryland that employ over 184 individuals. These businesses are located in Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Montgomery County, PG County, Carroll County, and Queen Anne County. Our members are in the business of acquiring end-of-life total loss motor vehicles. They will then take the suitable parts that can be used for repairs, and then they will sell those to vehicle owners, in many cases 50 to 60% cheaper than new original equipment manufactured parts. Oddly enough, our association and our membership, Auto Recyclers, we are an exception in the automotive industry where we are actually a carbon negative industry because we are reusing motor vehicle parts and putting them to their highest and best use. So our industry is in support of the bill because our members are dependent on repair and maintenance data and independent repair shops having access to that data to enact motor vehicle repairs that are cheaper and more cost effective than going to an OEM dealer. So the auto recycling industry and its viability is actually at risk unless motor vehicle owners have repair and maintenance data, and they can give those to independent repair shops and can use parts of their choosing, as well as the independent repair shops of their choice. One question that I heard with regards to Massachusetts, I just wanted to point out that Maine just certified 70,000 signatures to put a very similar provision on the ballot this November, similar to the language in this bill as well as in Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further witnesses and no questions, that concludes the bill hearings for today. If you're on public utilities, I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Thank you.